Coming up on the program, it's all about growing potatoes, everything you need to know so you have a successful crop of potatoes in the ground. And this also applies for containers. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener is sponsored by the following. MIgardener.com, over 300 varieties of non-GMO, heirloom, organic flowers, vegetables, and herb seeds, all for 99 cents. MIgardener.com. Sioux Growing Supply, located in Wausau, Wisconsin, focusing on certified leaf compost, an excellent amendment for poor soil. With their new garden blend, improving soil structure in clay and sandy soil, great for creating new garden beds. Also available from Sioux's, pre-filled trays and pots with professional potting soil mix or organic rice hull-based potting soil mix. Bag and bulk of certified leaf compost also available. Visit SiouxGrowingSupply.com. Stop before you dig. Call Digger's Hotline first. Call 3 business days before you dig. It's the law. It's completely free and it's for your safety. Know what's below before you dig. It's your responsibility. Call Digger's Hotline or visit them at diggershotline.com. HappyLeafLED.com. Commercial grade grow light with a home gardener's affordability. No fans, no motors. Simply plug in and grow. Great for seed starting to lettuce to full grown tomatoes. All indoors. HappyLeafLED.com.
Sustain Natural Fertilizer, offering superior organic plant foods that deliver research-proven results. Trusted by farmers, growers, and gardeners for 30 years. Learn more at sustain.com.
Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. I'm Joy Baird. Today we're going to plant our potatoes. We've worked our bed, and what we've done is we've come in here with the garden fork and fluffed the soil, worked the soil, removed the weeds, and it wasn't too wet and it worked very, very well. Again, a garden fork is not a hay fork. It is a hard tine fork that is designed to loosen soil or work soil in the garden. I've also come in and I've just top dressed it with dry or drying grass clippings from the yard. These are chemical-free, seed-free grass clippings. Now, if you have sprayed your lawn, you don't want to use this because those chemicals, like a weed and feed or something of that nature, it contains a chemical that it's called 2,4-D, which it kills broadleaf plants. No matter if you put it on your garden as a mulch or let it break down into a compost form, that 2,4-D is still persistent and will kill your plant. So you can't do that. Don't do that. As long as it's chemical-free and seed-free, you're good to go. We've got our potatoes here. Yukon Gems from Wood Prairie Farms are in Bridgewater, Maine. Family-owned, non-genetically modified potatoes, family, and they're very anti-GMO. Very good potatoes. They still have potatoes available on their website. So we're going to do 2 rows of the Yukon Gems, and then we're going to do a row of potatoes that we harvested last year that we had got from Wood Prairie Farms, and do 1 row of old potatoes that are going to be new, that are our seed potatoes. One thing I will caution you is if you're going to save potatoes and plant them the following year, like we have some left in the cupboard that we harvested last autumn, if those potatoes have potato scab or other diseases during the growing season or at harvest, you don't want to plant them. We're going to plant that 3rd row of just those potatoes. The reason being, those potatoes can infect the potatoes, the new certified seed potatoes that we're growing this year. So with that being said, now can you grow potatoes from store-bought potatoes? Yes, as long as they're organic. The inorganic or the commercially grade potatoes typically have a growth inhibitor that prevents the eyes from forming. And the other thing you'd want to try to do is find out the variety in which you are growing that you got from your local organic co-op or grocery store, because you need to know if they're an early variety, a mid variety, or a late variety, so you have an idea of how long those potatoes should grow in the ground. So with that being said, I've prepped the bed here. We've added some, in this trench here, which is only about 6 inches in depth from grade, I put some coffee grounds in the bottom here, and this will feed the worms as well as help feed the soil. Used coffee grounds are about 2% nitrogen, and if you're going to use them, you want to cover them up, not just broadcast them, because the nitrogen will evaporate into the atmosphere. Another thing, you want to avoid using potato towers. This is a common garden myth, And the reason why is if the tines is the base of the potato and the handle is the stalk, the ideal, the premise behind it is as we continue to backfill and this stalk gets taller, the thought is that the potato stalk will put more potatoes on all the way up the stem, whether the stem is 2 foot or 4 foot or 6 foot long. This is simply not true. There is no scientific proof from any university extension that office that states this. It's simply a false garden practice, and it's a waste of time and full of disappointment. So you can do them in grow bags, you can do them in the ground. There are two different varieties of potatoes. One that will put most of their potatoes on at the root zone, 4 to 6 inches window of space underground, and that's about it. And there's other ones that will do a little more variation, but the premise of planting them, backfilling or healing them up is simply to protect the potato that's underground, to keep it from sun exposure, because if the potato is green from the sun, it becomes toxic and is not safe for you to eat. It's not recommended. You do what you want, but that's at your own risk. So we've got the soil worked, we've got some coffee grounds here. Now let's talk about fertilizer. We're also going to incorporate some certified leaf compost into the trenches and the holes in which we were growing. There are 3 numbers on every fertilizer bag in the universe: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Nitrogen allows the plant to be green. Phosphorus helps feed the roots for root development and flower production. And potassium helps bring the first 2 together and kind of balances everything out. These are large or main nutrients for all growing species, but there are a lot of micronutrients that also plants need to grow. But that's a general rule of thumb to keep in mind. And really you want to kind of keep it under the 666, 777, 888 kind of mindset or numbers, because anything excessive to that, the plants are just not going to pick up. There's no need for it, and you're just over fertilizing. And always follow the recommended rate on the back of the package. It's there for a reason. Just because you think more is better is not the case. There's a reason why instructions are on the back. So we're going to incorporate that in the hole. So now we've got all of that covered. Let's get down to planting. We want to plant the potatoes when the soil temperature at root zone, where we're going to put the potato, is minimum 45 degrees, preferably 50 degrees Fahrenheit, consistent, that it's not going to dip below that temperature, because they will get cold, they'll sit there, and they'll rot if there's a duration of period in which the potato is planted. You want to plant these, you can plant these 2 weeks before your last average frost date, and based on the type of potato, the early, mid, or late season varieties, you can plant them throughout the season as long as you can back it off your last average frost date to where you can harvest it before it frosts. So we've planted potatoes the first week in July before too, and it's worked just fine. So I'm going to get some compost and we're going to get planting. All right, so I'm just adding just a couple fulls of compost in the base of this trench here, and then I'm going to add some sustained fertilizer. We're using certified leaf compost from Sioux Growing Supply, and then we're also going to add this sustained fertilizer, which is derived from pine bark and turkey litter. And you can make a container of any size for the recommendations on the back of your fertilizer bag. This is just the bottom of a plastic container. And I'm just going to fertilize. And if you got good rich soil, you'll have a good return. If you got poor soil, you're not going to get that big. So we're building the soil. Now, return of potatoes for one. You can read a lot of things online and believe what you want, but 1 pound of planted potatoes, the equivalent of 8 to 10 pounds in return, kind of the average of what I'm seeing for a lot of gardeners would be happy. Now you do see the stories of planted 1 pound, got 15 pounds in return. It's whatever you want to believe. Okay, so you want to space these. About a foot apart is really what's recommended. I will go about 9 inches just to save 3 inches on every plant, and by the end of the row I can go ahead and get like another couple plants in. Let's talk about chitting and cutting the potato. You want your potato to be no smaller no matter what you do. I mean, if you're going to cut it and cut multiple eyes on it. Let's pull another one for example. Let's say that was a full potato and there's no not matches, but each of them are no smaller than a medium-sized chicken egg. That's important because this potato itself is the energy for what the eye will produce the stalk, and at some point the eye that was going to be the stalk will venture out, put roots, and disconnect itself from the tuber, and that's when you dig the potatoes up. You see this deflated or rotten potato? That's the seed potato. So you want to do that. You want to have at least one eye per potato and plant them with the eyes up. Now, you don't have to cut these. You can plant them as a solid potato. Studies have shown it doesn't matter if you leave them as a solid potato or you cut them, the yield is the same. The only advantage that you're gaining is if you cut them, you now have 2 potatoes that you can plant versus 1. So keep that in mind. And if you have a long chit on them, we'll talk about that when we get to planting our next segment of potatoes. But we're going to plant them, just going to nestle them in about every 9 inches. And it's really best if you cut these a day or 2 before you're actually going to plant. That produces a scab or a callus, and that greatly reduces the amount of opportunity that insects in your soil have to burrow in and eat the insides out of your potatoes. You can also cover them with sulfur. Some people don't let them dry and throw them right in the ground, do just fine. It's just a pre-measure caution to help have you better success. All right, so I got them all planted, and now I'm just heeling them over. And I might have to come back and add more to this heel, but you can see where the potatoes are. And when you work a bed, you never can get all the junk out of it. You want to remove all the roots that you can because those will propagate new plants, new weeds. So I just want to heel this up 6-8 inches. And then once I get that done, I'll have a trench here, and that will mark where my next row is going to be here of our second way of planting potatoes. So I've got that side planted, I've heeled it up. Now what I've done on this side is I've already pre-heeled, and I've actually took garden trowel and dug holes spacingly about 9 inches apart. Now what this will do is I can plant my potatoes and then just backfill out of the trench. We're also going to add some compost. So I've also added a little bit of coffee ground here, just kind of eyeball it. You can't add too much coffee grounds. I mean, excessive, yeah, but just be moderate with it. And these holes are about 6 inches, deep, 4, 5, 6 inches deep, something like that. And that'll work just fine. Now I'm going to add the appropriate amount of fertilizer, and then we can plant our potatoes. Now one thing we can do is, before we plant the potatoes, just kind of work the fertilizer and the coffee ground in a little bit, because it really is not recommended to allow your roots or tubers to set directly on that fertilizer. What you want to have happen is those roots reach down and find that fertilizer, and by the time the plants need it, the fertilizer has broke down to a usable form, and that just could take a little while, a few weeks with some fertilizers to break down to a usable form. So what we're going to do is use the potatoes that we harvested last fall and plant this spring. This is a seed potato which we saved from last year's harvest, and it has a very long chit on it or sprout on it. You can plant this potato. What you want to avoid is taking and snapping this off or cutting it back. What you want to do is plant it as it normally is. Plant it fully in the ground and backfill. And what happens is that potato will grow just fine, produce its roots and its top growth. By snapping it off, what you're putting the potato or the tuber in a recovery mode. This is the energy that creates this. By snapping this off, the energy now has to put more energy in to create a new sprout. And based on the size of the potato, you may not have enough energy in that potato, and your potato will rot in the ground and not grow for you. So we're going to plant those and just nestle them in. Now this is a larger potato, has 1 sprout on it. We're just going to put all 3, or just put it in the ground like that. And we'll just go through here. I got a variety of different, this is a fingerling. We're just going to go ahead and plant that type of thing. We're just going to go through here, and then we're going to backfill with a little compost and a little native soil, and we'll be all done. All right, now we're going to take some compost, and with these eyes that are, or these sprouts that are very long, we just want to gently because we don't want to snap them off. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to fill it about halfway full with compost in each one of these holes. That's just simply to enrich the soil around it, and as it rains, a lot of that nutrients will kind of permeate around in with the native soil mix in, as well as worms. And then I'll come in here and pull a trench, or make a trench here. And what we can do here, and what we did last year that worked very well, is we utilize the trench area, or the center area between the two rows, and we intercropped. And we intercropped great white northern beans. What we will do with this bed, or this area here, is we're going to plant beets. Now, if you're going to intercrop with potatoes, here's a rule of caution. You don't want something that's going to last longer than what the potatoes last, because if we put tomatoes, for example, down the center, those will grow all the way to frost. These potatoes will be done in about 90 days. So you're digging up the potato, but you're also disturbing the roots of whatever you got planted in the center, or the intercropping. So keep that in mind if you want to do something quick, or like beets will be done in 70 days, the potatoes will be done in about 90. Works very well, and you can utilize and get more space out of the area in which you have. So when it comes to planting potatoes, it's that easy. The same application can be applied for growing them in a container. The only thing with a container, fill it about a third full, plant your potatoes, put your nutrients, your fertilizer, your compost. In a container, we use certified leaf compost, the whole thing compost. So fill a third full, plant your potatoes, add your nutrients, top it off, water it, and keep it watered, and you'll have potatoes in the time frame in which those potatoes will mature. Thanks for joining me. Join me again next time for more organic gardening and food preserving. I'm Joy Barrett, and this has been the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.